Okay, I'm Gary Page. I'm a member and a board member from Homefront Strong. We do a lot of work with the veterans, and we're going to talk about George's story today. So George, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you've been up to before you went into the service.
Before I went, I'm Sergeant First Class George Randall, U.S. Army retired. Before I went into the service, I was obviously a recent graduate of Granby, Massachusetts High School. My draft number was 320, and it was in a lottery, and my number was up, and I decided that I really didn't want to go and fight in a war at my young age. I think I've worded that right. So I enlisted in the Army Reserve down in Springfield, Mass. In January of 1969. One of my incentives to join the military was my U.S. history teacher and also my world history teacher, John Kane. And he gave us a homework assignment every night that was mandatory, that we watched the news and we would discuss the news the following day in class. And I hated that because it was the same stuff every night on the news about the war. How many soldiers were injured, how many U.S. soldiers were killed, and how many Viet Cong or / Vietnamese soldiers were killed. And I hated that because I was 18 years old. And did I want to talk about massive death every morning in class? And the answer to that was no. Mm-hmm. So after I graduated from high school in June and Mr. Kane retired, I would have breakfast with him once in a while. And I got to really like that man. And I got to realize that he was absolutely brilliant. Mm-hmm. A brilliant teacher. But I was still 19 years old. And my dislike that I had for him turned into love and admiration. He was positively brilliant. So as I said, I joined the Army Reserve in Springfield. It was the...
let me interrupt
Sure.
for a second. Were you still in school at this time?
I was graduated.
Oh, you already graduated?
Yep.
Yep.
I joined the 187th Infantry. It was the 3rd Battalion, 35th Infantry. The 187th was a separate infantry brigade. The 187th was formed out in Arizona. Hence I'll show you after it, the symbol for the 187th is a cactus. Mm-hmm. So we were known as the Cacti Battalion. Okay. And it was a very interesting thing. And the 187th was an extremely well-decorated unit from World War I, World War II, and Korea. They are, those are the heroes. I was just a soldier. So I went to basic training at Fort Jackson, and it was a record heat wave that summer. It was awful, horrible.
What year was that?
1969.
69, okay.
And it was a horrible heat wave, and every day we had to restructure what we did. Breakfast, lunch, and supper were served at the appropriate times, but physical fitness training was at 4:30 in the morning, and in the evening after we got back, if it cooled down, we would do that. Everywhere we went, we either marched at a quick time pace, or they had us loaded into these old cattle trucks, and they would transport us to the ranges where we should have been marching to the ranges. And our training was geared around Vietnam. And they told us get used to the heat, because when you get to Vietnam, that's what you're gonna be dealing with. And it didn't matter if you were a reservist or a guardsman or enlisted or drafted. We all trained the same way.
I wanted to ask you a question.
Sure.
When we talked, you talked about a place called Tank Hill.
Tank Hill.
What was that? I think that was during your basic.
That sure was.
Yeah.
They were just beginning the modern barracks, brick buildings that were heated and air conditioned and so on. We were still in the old wooden buildings that were built during World War II. And we were on the side of this hill, and it was called Tank Hill. I don't know the reason why it was called Tank Hill, but there was a tank on top of the hill. And everything was beach sand. And we were one of the last companies to go through Tank Hill. And anybody that's gone to Fort Jackson, Tank Hill was a legend.
No, look at
Yep, it made people or it broke people. I should make a note that the barracks that we were in were constructed in World War II as temporary barracks. Every building that the military has a number plaque on one corner. For example, my barracks was T217, and T stands for temporary, and the building number was 217. So if somebody had an emergency, you could tell, if you call in for an emergency, you would tell the building number is T217, and they could look it up on the base map and tell right where you were. But the buildings were in remarkably excellent condition on the interior and on the exterior. The one thing that we learned from the military is that we had to take care of the building. And, floors were waxed, windows were washed, beds were made, obviously, and many a day we came in from the field and all our stuff was in a pile on the floor because somebody didn't do something right, and when they came in to inspect the barracks, I mean, it was perfect, but all our stuff was dumped on the floor, and oh Christ, it was. But getting back to the buildings, the shower was a communal shower, no privacy. In the latrine, the toilets were communal. You could go in and sit down on the toilet, and you'd be talking to the guy next to you, just like we're talking, or I'm talking to the guy next to you.
It's vaguely.
Vaguely familiar?
Yeah.
Well, it gets better.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly the trough that was on the back wall, that was on an angle, and if you had to urinate, you could go over and you had to use that trough. And there was probably 15 people lined up on either side of you doing the same thing. I don't mean to be descriptive or improper about that, but that's just how it was.
Yeah, very true. Well, I was wondering, I might continue with your service record there. And, as much as possible. So you already talked about your high school and your history teacher, which was good. What did you like about servicing in the military, and what details can you serve on that?
Well, over my career, I did a lot of things. I trained as an infantry soldier at Fort Jackson. And I came back to when my training was over and I came back to the unit, it was constant infantry training. We learned how to remove the enemy, and eventually they sent me to instructor school. I learned, as I said, I learned how to remove the enemy. So then I was taught how to teach people to remove the enemy. So I became an instructor. And eventually in 1978, I transferred out of the infantry unit in Springfield to a company of instructors in South Windsor, Connecticut. Mm-hmm. It was, I changed from the 187th, I transferred into the 76th Division Training Command. Mm-hmm. And I was, due to my rank that I had as an E7 at the time, I was a senior instructor, and I was in charge of a group of instructors. Our job was to augment the active Army at our reserve camp during the summer. We were a satellite company that had a separate satellite unit to this company in Waterbury, Connecticut. Our headquarters was in Augusta, Maine, and the 76th Division in New England was known as New England's finest.
Wow.
And in reality, they were. The caliber of instructors that we had were first rate. We all went to instructor school or instructor academy or whatever you want to call it, so that everybody learned to teach a particular subject the same way. We did several reserve camps in Fort Benning, mm-hmm. and our mission at Benning was to augment the regular Army instructors. In case they were tasked to go to Vietnam, we would go to Fort Benning and we would take their place on the ranges. And fortunately for them and for us, the balloon never went up, that we would have to do that. It was our mission. If it came to us to do, well, we would do what we had to. When we went away to our reserve camps, our camp was either at Fort Benning or at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And before we could go on the podium, we had to present a block of instruction to regular Army, and we had to present it verbatim to what regular Army had. We couldn't change a word. It had to be exact. And we rehearsed and practiced all year. And when we got to our reserve camp in the summer, regular Army was always impressed that we were that well prepared. Some of our staff would go to West Point and present a block of instruction to the cadets at West Point, or we would go to different Army Reserve units in Massachusetts or Connecticut, and we would present a block of instruction there. There was a USAR school at Westover, and some of our people were augmented to teach in other areas through the USAR school. Our company of instructors, we would do a 2-week summer camp in Fort Benning for many years, and then our mission changed as the situation changed in Vietnam. We were tasked by regular Army, the entire 76th Division in New England was tasked by regular Army to take a basic trainee soldier from day one at the reception station to the last day, which was graduation day. We were somewhere in the middle. My company in East Windsor, we were somewhere in the middle of the cycle. We taught day and night defensive fire, map reading. We did some. Map reading was an intense thing. It sounds simple, but it got involved. Day and night defensive fire. Mines. We taught the AT-4, which is like a modern version of the old bazooka. Single shot, fire once, throw it away.
Could I ask you
Yeah.
what years this was? Because you seem to be moving up, and you were a chief instructor at the time?
I transferred out. I went into the 187th in January of '69. Basic training was summer of 1969. So I learned and honed my infantry craft up through summer of 1978. In summer of 1978, I had the opportunity to transfer to this instructor company. It was Company B on Phelps Road. So I took the transfer. That was in it was in the summer of '78. And I stayed there until I retired in '91.
When did you see President Jimmy Carter? Was that long after this, or?
No, I was still with the. No, I was with the 76th Division at the time. We were at Fort Benning.
Okay.
And I think it might have been 94, I think. I can't remember exactly. What I did was I sent a letter to Jimmy Carter's secretary. Her name was Faye Dill, and a very nice lady. And I asked if it would be possible to meet Mr. Carter, and there would be myself and one other instructor. So I asked for 15 minutes, and so she approved the visit, and I discussed it with my lieutenant for my section, and I told him that I needed 3 hours off during the day, on a day that we didn't have anything scheduled, so to speak. So he asked me what it was for, and I told him I've got an appointment to meet with President Carter. And he didn't believe me. So fortunately, I had the folder with me that had my correspondence and that it confirmed everything. So he had to go to to our company commander and request my time off, and the company commander didn't believe it. So I had to appear before the company commander and show him my correspondence that myself and Staff Sergeant Fred Saprina had this meeting scheduled. So my company commander, this all went up the line.
Wow.
And when I got to Jimmy's house, the POI people were there, and they took the pictures, and I brought President Carter a jar of honey from Granby, Mass, because Jimmy had a sweet tooth, and I also brought him down one of our town bicentennial plates from 1968, and he was a most amazing guy, a gentle man that he wanted to hear what we what we were doing as a training company at Fort Benning. Once he got that out of the way, he was interested in me as a person, and he wanted to know about these are his words, about my mommy and my daddy. What a true gentleman. And instead of the 15 minutes, we ended up having almost an hour's worth of time.
Nice.
Yeah, and he was just so nice. He wanted to know when we were coming back so he could take us fishing. He wanted to take us fishing then, but of course we didn't have the time. We had to get back onto post and get back out to the ranges.
I understand he's an avid fisherman.
Oh, he talked about fishing, and he said he'd take us to some of the nicest fishing holes in the area, and but we just didn't have the time. Had I known in advance that we may have had a chance to go fishing, I may have brought my pole.
Oh.
But neither of us brought our fishing equipment. We just wanted to go and meet the president and share our gifts with him, and he autographed a couple of books for us, and that was a very interesting read. His books, he talked about his family and in the books and how important his family was to him.
Around this time, you talked about a cemetery.
Oh, in Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah, it was called Andersonville.
Yes.
And the Andersonville was a small town, and they have a prison down there called Andersonville Prison. And it's where the rebel soldiers took the Yankee soldiers, held them captive, and starved the Yankee prisoners to death. All of the states that had soldiers that die at Andersonville, the states created their own monuments down there.
Wow.
And the Massachusetts monument is massive because a lot of soldiers from Massachusetts fought in the Revolutionary War.
Yes.
And it's just an amazing place to be. And while I was there, they had just constructed they were going to build this big, massive museum. And as they started to excavate, they found oodles of weapons and that were thrown away and buried over the years. And what they did is they stopped what they were doing, and they covered over everything with a big dome, so that you could walk in there and see all these weapons and metal stuff that was still there.
So they left them on the ground?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so they constructed the office and the museum off to the side, but you can see what they had and what some of the conditions were like. Now, granted, when we were there, all the walls around the entire encampment or compound, the walls were all taken down, and but you could see where the barracks were, or it wasn't barracks then; it was tents. You could see where they were lined up, and they had when everybody died, and if you notice any military cemetery that you go to, everything is in line.
Yes.
Everything.
Yes, yeah.
And you can look here, and the angles are there, and the angles are there. So they had the same thing set up there. When one of the prisoners died, each prisoner had a number. It was assigned a number when you came in. Your number 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. And then there's a book. There's an alphabetical book that lists everybody by last names. And I, of course, being curious, I went into the R's and I found a Randall that died there and was buried there. He was from the town of Easton, Mass, which is It's off of 495 just before you get to the Cape. And I made sure that I bought a poppy in the store, and I took a poppy over to his marker, and I said a prayer and left the poppy there. And an interesting fact about this encampment or this prison is that they were digging in the ground and they found a spring. And I can't remember the name. I think it was called the Providence Spring, and because they never supplied the prisoners with any water.
Wow.
And the water was a brackish water, but it gave them some relief. I mean, would you drink brackish water? Suppose if I had to, you can only go so long without it. And the spring is still there. They've got a marble marker on it, and there's still water that flows.
Okay.
Yeah, to this day.
Good strong spring.
Yep.
You had a tattoo of 76th Division?
Let me tell you about that. Holy crap. Now, I only have one tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
The day that I turned 60, the hell was that? Well, anyways, the day I turned 60, there was nothing going on. My wife had something to do with the family, and so I was left home alone. That's a wrong thing to do. Mm-hmm. I had a couple of how can I word it? A couple of celebration cocktails.
Yes.
And I decided that I always wanted to get a tattoo, always. And there was a tattoo parlor, and I went down and I said to the guy, I said, "Hey, look, can you do this on this arm?" He says, "Yep." I forget what I paid. It was either $60 or $80. I don't remember at the time. So I peeled it off. He says, "Come on in and have a seat and take your shirt off." So I got the tattoo of the 76th Division, and I didn't say anything to my wife. Now, every night we would sit in the living room in this den. We would watch TV. So I'm sitting there, and I had the tattoo for a couple of weeks. So it was covered in some type of sanitary bandage, and I took the bandage off. She didn't even know. I didn't even see the bandage. Didn't even know that I had it. And so I'm sitting there, and we're watching a show, and she says, "Jesus Christ, you got a tattoo? When did you get that tattoo?" Yap. And I said, "Linda, I've had that for 3 weeks." "I didn't see that tattoo. Why'd you get a tattoo?" And it went on and on and on. But I'm quite proud of that tattoo.
There you go.
And I've always wanted to get a second tattoo, which would be the emblem from the 35th Infantry, which I have over here. Mm-hmm. And I haven't done it yet. Ah. And it's been 15 years.
What can you tell me about the 187th? Was that something you were...
I was really glad to be there. It was an infantry unit, so everywhere we went, we walked, we carried our stuff, and as I got older, we slept in tents. Management slept in the barracks. We slept in the tents wherever we went. When we trained around here, we trained up at Knightville Dam and Littleville Dam. Even at Westover, we would be sleeping in the tents. After a while, sleeping on the ground gets old, but that was part of the job, and builds character.
Yes, it does.
And but let me tell you about the 187th when they disbanded.
Okay.
they formed an association, and the association was formed out of the Springfield unit. And every year in the summer, they would have a reunion. And every year, as we got older, the attendees got less and less. They had the association was for 20 years, and they decided to disband the association. They took the money that they had in the treasury, and they gave it away in scholarships. That was quite the thing. So every year, what is left of the association is we get together for a breakfast, spring breakfast and a fall breakfast. In fact, the spring breakfast is the 25th of this month. We're going to Crazy Jake's on Route 20 in Wilbraham. We were there last fall, and we liked the place enough, and I'm in charge of that. So I went back to see the lady and asked if we could come back, and she says, yes, you're welcome here. So we have the reunion breakfast, spring and fall. When they disbanded the 76th Division, I had already retired, and the disbandment came after I had retired and moved on. Nobody from the 76 has organized a reunion.
No kidding.
Yep. And they had a form called 1379. The 1379 was it had your name, your address, your email, and a contact number on it. Nobody saved one, so I started looking for the guys through Facebook. And you type in a common name like George Randall, and up comes a list. You know, you don't know who's who, and so I started to backtrack. I went on to Google, and Google is very good. The key is to how you word your search, and I'll use my name to do a search. I would do a Google search, and again they'd come up with a long list of names. I refined my search to George Randall obituary, and the list shortened up, but I found a multitude of guys from my unit at the 76th Division that have already gone before me. So we're content to, I'm content to do the breakfast for the guys from the 35th. And we haven't done anything with a reunion for the 76 yet.
Okay, so at this point you're retired, right?
I am retired, yes.
Okay.
I'll tell you about that.
Sure.
I went into the unit one day. We drilled Saturday. We drilled Sunday. So we finished Saturday, came in on Sunday, and we had a closing briefing, and then we were dismissed. So at the closing briefing, they asked, does anybody have anything to say? So I raised my hand, and I said, today is my last drill. I thanked everybody for their not only their courtesy, but their professionalism on the ranges and the professionalism at the unit. And I went into the office, signed my papers, and went home.
Nice.
Yep.
Now it's what? This is what, the 1990s?
I retired in 91.
91. Okay.
It was fall of 91.
So I know you've been busy doing things.
Yeah.
You do a lot of work with the community?
Yeah, I was, this year marks 50 years of my service to the town of Granby, 34 of which was, I was a member of the fire department, and 4 years was a town moderator, and then you start looking at all the committees I've served on, fire chief search committees, historical commission, my years of involvement with scouting, and it just adds up. So I'm just finished my last fire department search committee. We did our interviews last week, and we're going to submit 2 names to the select board to review. We're going to have our final meeting. I'll type out the minutes of the meeting and send them to the interim fire chief, and then I'm done.
That's very nice.
50 years.
50 years.
Yep.
You told me about your feelings of the story. Some people tell a story and leave a legacy with the family. Is that something you're trying to get out of this video?
Yes, because when it's important to me that my grandchildren know what I did, why I did it. When my 2 boys were growing up, and I was attending reserve drills and going away for my 2 weeks of summer camp and other active duty stuff, I missed birthdays, I missed family events, and, well, I was there. So what I did was for Christmas, I got these 3 totes. And I put stickers on them, one for Owen, one for Allie, and one for Anna. And I took my military stuff, and each one of the grandchildren got the same thing. There's a book printed on my family that was printed in 1909, and I managed to find 3 copies. Each one got a copy of that. Each one got a fire department mug, and so on, so that each one got the same thing. Regarding my military stuff, I had my Army Commendation medals and Distinguished Service medals, and so each one got the same thing. So that they couldn't say, you got this and I didn't. Each one got basically the same,
Well, that's good.
same thing. So that'll be a part of the legacy to
Good.
do that.
Did they understand any of what you gave them?
The 2 oldest ones, yes. The youngest one is now 10. She'll be 11 on July 24th, actually. She's a typical 10-year-old. But my grandson is now, he'd be 19 in September, and my other granddaughter will be 17 next month. So they know, and they understand. But the youngest one is getting better. Her mom passed away 4 years ago when she was just 7 years old, and so it's been a difficult tour of duty for my wife. My wife is with these 2 girls every single day, and that's our priority. Neither of my wife and I are a priority to each other. It's devoted to the 3 grandchildren, but in particular the two granddaughters.
I understand that you're recently going to receive an award.
Oh,
I heard about that.
how'd you hear that?
You.
Oh, yeah. this lady that I haven't seen in, well, I graduated high school 68. She would have graduated 1970. I haven't seen her since 70 or 71. She nominated me for a Quilt of Valor. And it's an incredible honor to be nominated. And I told her, I said, Debbie, I said, there are plenty of people that deserve this before me. I said, and I made it quite clear, I am no war hero. I had a wonderful military career, and I had a job to do. I did it to the best of my ability. And so she went on and on and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. So bottom line was, she asked me if she would mind if she nominated me, and I said, no, do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. So I didn't think anything of it for over a year. A few weeks ago, well, over a month ago, I got a call from a lady down by the Cape, and I didn't recognize the number. And I'm glad I didn't answer the phone the way I usually do when I don't recognize a number. But this lady introduced herself to me and told me that the nomination for me to receive this Quilt of Valor was approved, and that there would be a lady from New Hampshire contacting me to make arrangements to get the quilt to me. I haven't got it yet, but the only way that I'm going to accept it is in honor and memory of the guys from my town that have gone before me.
Yep.
You know,
I think that's doable.
Yeah.
You're not alone. There are those in my own town.
Yeah.
That received it.
We had two that were killed in Vietnam. And we had one guy come home. He was an Army tunnel rat, and the stress of everything he brought home with him, he ended his own stress, Chucky Kent was a great friend to a lot of us, and he did what he had to do. There was help available to him, not like it is today. Years ago, we went down to Washington D.C. and I wanted to go into see the Vietnam Wall, to see where the guys were on the wall from Granby. Mm-hmm. So I was the only one there, except at the end of the wall, the federal workers were there that had the book, and you could look the name up and stuff. So I walked in, and I had this eerie feeling, because I was there by myself, and I could hear them.
Okay.
I could hear them. And they said, I distinctly heard it. Shh, here he comes.
Wow.
Holy crap.
That's excellent.
A wonderful memory, but difficult to talk about, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
At the time, at the end of the wall, there was a tent set up, and it was called, oh, jeepers. Guys that, I'm having trouble with my memory, and I can't remember the darn name. But what it was a listing of people that came back from Vietnam and who did not die in Vietnam, but died as a result of Vietnam.
Yes.
Guys that had ended their own suffering. So I'm going through the book, and I get into K, and there's Chucky Kent's name. And he's the third man from Granby that had passed away. So all the other guys, there were pictures there, and Chucky had a nice write-up and no picture. So when I got home, I contacted his mother and asked her to send a picture down to this, it's called the Last Outpost. And Chucky got his picture there. And and they finally got recognition. When the traveling wall came around to this area, a friend of mine and I went to see it. It was at the Big E. This was several years ago, and we went to this trailer, and we're watching the names scroll across, and from guys from the Last Outpost. And I went through A, B, C, and so on. Finally, it gets up to K. So I'm standing there, and I'm looking at it, and I'm watching it go. Charles Kent. I was so happy to see that name. You know, just good memory.
That's good.
But that's the only way that I'll accept the quilt, is in honor of these three guys from
I believe that's
from
quite
town.
doable. Like I said, there
Yeah.
are other gentlemen, other veterans out there that received it too. They're not necessarily war heroes.
Yeah, I make it quite clear. I am not a war hero. The government gave me a job to do, and I did to the best of my ability.
It's an honor,
Yeah.
but I think you can dedicate it
Yeah.
without
And
any problem.
so I look forward to receiving it and
Good.
sharing it. It's nothing that I will pack away. I'll put it on display in the house. I'll take it to the library and let them hang it up, and it may eventually end up in the Granby Historical Association. Yeah, so for people to see that. Yeah.
Good job.
And I'll accept it in memory of this guy named John Smathers. John was he was at basic training in Fort Jackson. He was a good old boy from the mountains. Nice guy, great friend, and a moonshiner. Yeah, and when we were at basic training, excuse me, he kind of flunked out of basic training. It's kind of hard to do. And our drill sergeant had us out in front of on the company street, and we're all lined up. We all had our duffel bags full of our stuff, and he made us dump this out onto the company street, and they're going through this and going through that, and they're looking for stuff we're not supposed to have.
Contraband.
Contraband, like a pocket knife. And because people do weird things when they have a pocket knife and they're under a lot of stress. So I heard this guy laughing. You know, the drill sergeant is right in our face, and he's yelling and screaming. You remember those days? Yeah. And he was yelling and screaming, and I heard this guy laughing and laughing. So I turned around, and there's this guy up in the second floor of this barracks looking down at us, and he says to me, "Relax. After a while, it's like a day camp." So I relaxed, and after a while, it was like a day camp. Mm-hmm. You learn to work with the system, to avoid getting yelled at. You know, if you tell me to do something, I'll do it. I'm not going to find fault with it. I'll do it.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
So when I finished basic training, I went across the post to our Advanced Infantry Training School, AIT, and that's where they had the brick buildings with air conditioning. Yep. And this other soldier that was laughing at us, he came over to our AIT barracks, and I trained with him, and we had the best time. Oh, jeepers. When graduation day came around, I, of course, got on a plane and came home. He got on a plane and went to Vietnam. So we corresponded back and forth for quite a while. And then the letters stopped coming. So I figured that he had gotten killed in Vietnam. And so I had a couple of cocktails one night, and I started researching people. Back into the computer, I found the town that he lived in. It was Athens, Ohio. And I typed in the name John Smathers, and I got a John Smathers, but at a different address. It turns out it was John's uncle, so I sent him a letter. His uncle didn't give him the letter for 12 years. 12 years.
Wow.
So, and I didn't know. I figured no response. I figured he was passed away. So one night the phone rang, and my wife answered it, and she hands me the phone and says, "Here, this is for you." And the voice on the other end of the line says, "Hey, you son of a bitch!" And I recognized the voice.
Oh, no kidding.
I said, "Hey, John, I thought you were dead." So we rekindled a great friendship. We would talk on the computer every morning before we went to work, and we wish each other a great day. Later in the evening, we'd get back on the computer at the end of the day, and we would talk about our day and what we did and didn't do, and it was a great friendship for a lot of years. And when he was in Vietnam, he was a truck driver. He had all of his stuff on the front seat of the truck. So wherever he went, and they stopped for the night, he would put his sleeping bag out on the ground and go to sleep. What do they have on the ground in Vietnam, you ask? And Agent Orange. And he was a self-employed painter. And one day he said, "George, I'm tired." And then the next day he was more tired. I said, "John, you've got to call your doctor." And so he made an appointment with the doctor, and they found that he had brain stem cancer.
Oh.
Yep. And so I decided that he was in the hospital, and they ended up sending him to a nursing home. So I ordered a new camper for my truck, and a camper came in, and one of my friends and I went up to Camper Warehouse in New Hampshire to pick it up, and because I was going to go see him. And we were on the way to pick up the camper, and my cell phone rang, and it was John's daughter. He had just passed away. So my first trip in my camper was to go to his funeral. I had the honor of speaking in the church, and I had the honor of being a pallbearer. And I'm in contact with his daughter and his granddaughter. I see them online all the time. It's the same question all the time. "Hi, Jennifer," or "Hi, Jessica. How are you? How's the family? Everybody's good. Thank you. Bye." But they're pleased that I remember. So when I went to his funeral, I was out there for five days. Before I left to come home, they gave me his last bottle of apple pie moonshine. Oh, so it was in this big mason jar. And I took that bottle with me all summer when we went to I competed in the tractor pulls, and we would all get together after the day was done, and I'd pour a shot for all the guys, and we would toast to him. They didn't know who he was, but I did. So we shared that. Now, I had about that much left in the bottle, and I had a display case in my office. So I taped the top of the bottle so to keep any of the air out and stuff, and it sat on the in the display case for all these years. And so now I've got it packaged up in a box, and I'll go to the post office probably Monday or Tuesday, and I'm going to mail it back to his daughter. And
Right there.
yeah, and she's got instructions to take it up to where John is buried, and to pour it around the around the gravestone. And that'd be John and I having a last shot together.
That's awesome.
Yeah, true story.
Excellent career and life and everything.
Yeah.
This is going to be good.
Well,
I want to thank you for
Yeah.
your service.
thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
And I think
That's
this
my
will-
honor to do whatever
I think
it
this
needs
will-
to be.
This will turn out very well. This will.
Yeah.